You are serving on the House Financial Services Committee. What legislation or ideas will you bring to the table in the coming months that will specifically help small businesses, not only in your district but around the country?
Well, I think it's important first to try to reflect and represent the state of New Hampshire, but also move legislation that's going to be impactful to the country. So there's three pieces of legislation already that I have sponsored. One specifically is eliminating duplication of projects, programs, or dollars. Have done that bipartisanly with Congresswoman Gwen Graham. Secondly, the Veterans Choice Card Act. I filed legislation to make that permanent and fully funded. New Hampshire has per capita amongst the highest veteran population in America. And then finally, something that I think is critically important to the country, I filed the repeal of the Cadillac tax within Obamacare, something that is a 40% tax on just about every policy holder, union and non-union, that has a policy valued over $10,200. So that's a pretty significant tax on the middle class. So we're trying to have a mix of helping New Hampshire, but also having a good, strong vision for the country.
What is your top goal or goals in 2015?
I'd like to reform the size, the scope, and the way the federal government does business and conducts itself. So, we could look at cutting a particular program that might be outdated, but what I really prefer is reform the process in Washington to make government more limited, more workable for people rather than the other way around. I think that would be the most important thing we could do as a Congress, because it would be a legacy type of achievement, not just something for this particular Congress.
I was reading about the Stop Cuts to Veterans Care, that program you introduced, that legislation you introduced. What other concerns do you see with veteran care that need to be addressed sooner rather than later?
Well, New Hampshire is having similar problems that the country is having relative to getting veterans access to immediate medical attention. So, for example, somebody who lives in the northern part of our state has to go out of state, either to Vermont or Massachusetts, in many circumstances to get care. That's because we don't have a full service VA facility in the state of New Hampshire. We're only one of two states that do not enjoy having a full service VA. But the challenges around the country are very similar in that sense that it takes a long time to see a physician. It takes a long period of time to get access to care. And in some circumstances, even last year, it was unfortunately identified that veterans were in some circumstances dying while waiting for care. That shouldn't happen. A veteran who's fought for our freedom, our liberty, should be able to access immediate care. So the Veterans Choice Card is critically important to allow that veteran to choose his or her medical facility of choice, public or private. That's something that's important. The other thing I've heard from veterans is that even though the program started last year, it's not very effective at this point in terms of the implementation. That's been a challenge. And then, of course, the president zeroed out the budget in his budget proposal, which is significantly problematic in my view. Veterans, again, shouldn't have to fight for these benefits that every other American enjoys.
Talking about the the 529 plan.
Sure.
Besides loosening restrictions on the 529 plan, which the House voted on yesterday, what other ways can Congress and the White House work together to make college more affordable?
Well, this is an interesting dialogue in New Hampshire and around the country. New Hampshire has amongst the highest debt per student in America. So this is a significant problem for families. Really, I would look at this a little bit differently. Most people are very concerned about the debt they're accumulating to get a degree or an advanced degree. I think fundamentally because they can't graduate getting a high-paying job. The economy is still sputtering, despite the fact that the unemployment numbers have declined. In New Hampshire, for example, the largest growing sector is retail. Well, that's all well and good, but those are jobs that are not going to fulfill the obligations that you have when you graduate college financially. So what I'd like to see is economic growth, tax reform, so we can have an explosion of our economy growing at 5, 6, 7% a year, If you start creating those high wage, high tech, high visibility jobs, whether it's New Hampshire or all across the country, you'll start to see that debt ratio decline immediately, because new students, graduating students, will have access to a weekly paycheck. That's something that's going to help not just that individual, but the community in which they reside. So that's really where I think the best thing we can do to try to make college more affordable, more accessible. Secondly, something that I think New Hampshire can lead the way in the country, you should be able to go to high school and excel throughout the course of the year, full 12 months out of the year, and have access to the curriculum outside of your high school. For example, if you take additional courses that would go toward college credit, or even get an associate's degree while you're in high school, because you are maximizing your time, your educational time, you can then reduce the cost of a 4-year degree to a 2-year degree. I think that's something incredibly important. You attach that to a STEM-like education, giving families, giving individuals more choice and more freedom in their educational opportunities. You'll see a completely different cost curve for education in general.
Okay. And finally, looking to 2016, what are you looking for in a candidate?
Well, look, I would love to see somebody who is a visionary, who can excite not just Republicans and Democrats, but have a real strong vision for the country. Give people the hope and opportunity that we really want to attract for our kids, for our grandkids. So I'm excited about the role that New Hampshire plays, the first in the nation primary, something that I support and feel very strongly about. As you know, people in New Hampshire are really adamant about directly questioning candidates from both sides of the aisle and making sure that they're tough and they're capable of answering some really articulate questions from the electorate. But we need somebody, I think, who's going to have a vision of reforming government, making government work on behalf of people, having good domestic policy, being strong on international policy, not just leading the country, but leading the nation and the world. So I'm excited to see who that person is. I think there's a whole host of great Republican candidates. On the Democrat side, it looks like at this point there really isn't much of a primary. But at least in the Republican primary, you're going to see solutions, ideas, and a vision for America that I think is going to capture a lot of undeclared voters and probably Democrat voters as well.